Hey everyone, welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today's episode is about how change comes when you cause a little bit of mischief. My guest this week is awesome, to put it very simply. Kaz ChuFoon is a member of Youth Parliament who delivered a speech during the UK Youth Parliament's sitting in the House of Commons, which went absolutely viral on X and Instagram. Before we dive into my conversation with the incredible Kaz, I am going to play a clip of their speech for you right now.
Never before has the paramount importance of sanctioning big oil and other massive companies annihilating our planet been so clear. We hit our first climate tipping point a matter of days ago, and yet those with the power to stop the climate crisis disregard our futures. 101 companies account for over 71% of global carbon emissions. Many of our most prominent political figures neglect climate action in favour of economic incentives, or even worse, they deny the climate crisis entirely. Let me be clear, this is a consequence of decades of colonialism, extractionism, and inequalities in power. Those responsible have offloaded this burden onto millions of consumers, manufacturing our disillusionment. Madam Deputy Speaker, we feel powerless to hold them to account because so much emphasis has been placed on our individual responsibility. We must not feel shame for being painted as complicit in a crisis that stretches far beyond our control. But united in our devotion to society and planet, our collective action can and will bring together communities in pursuit of a sustainable future together. Hold the executioners of our planet to account and instigate the change we need. The government must answer our calls. Soon it will be too late. Sanction climate killers, move to affordable renewable energy by 2035 and give us a future worth living. Because when the last tree is cut down, the last fish eaten and the last stream poisoned, you will realize that you cannot eat money.
So with that context in mind, I am so excited to share this conversation with Kaz ChuFoon.
I'm Kaz, and I'm a youth voice activist, and I'm based in Epping Forest in Essex. I do quite a lot of stuff, obviously including Youth Parliament, in terms of political advocacy and activism. Obviously, I'm part of FlippGen, which I know you work with us a bit as well. I'm also a Bite Back youth activist, and I work with the Jack Petchey Foundation, and I do a bit of, direct action as well. I do bits here and there for other organisations, so really I've got my fingers in quite a lot of pies.
That's awesome. A jack of all trades. We love to see that. So you mentioned, obviously, you were a member of Youth Parliament, and I think let's unpack that a little bit. If you feel comfortable, can you tell me about the last few days for you? This will be coming out Wednesday, November 12th. So tell me about how your weekend and the last few days have been, because it's a very unique experience that I think, as much as you'd like to share, I would love to know.
Yeah, so obviously I was at the sitting for Youth Parliament last Thursday. That evening, my friend sent me a post on Twitter, and I was Twitter or X, or whatever it's called, and said, this is you, this is your face doing your speech, because obviously I'd done my speech on sustainability at the dispatch box, and I was like, that is me. Someone's screenshotted my face and they've put it on their Twitter. Wow, let's have a look at what they have to say. And obviously it wasn't particularly positive, and neither were a few of the things that sort of immediately followed that up. And essentially what happened is those posts began absolutely exploding with some of the most intolerant people, uneducated people who I think are on that platform and on that sort of side of the internet. So what I did is I made a Twitter account, X account myself, to respond to one of these, and that from there it just exploded even more. I think that original post probably has about 5 million views now. That the retweet that I did of someone else calling them out for calling me mentally ill based on the premise of having dyed hair, which I think is frankly a bit ridiculous, absolutely exploded. So many people have come out in support of me as well, and it's just been absolutely surreal. I mean, I have had basically all the people in my life sort of come message me or talk to me and go like, Kaz, oh my goodness, I've seen you on social media. What's going on? And I'm like, I have no clue. I'm just riding the wave, like that's what I've been doing. I think I've gained about 17,000 followers on Twitter or X over the past 3 days. Videos on my Instagram with like 500,000 views. I've gone up to like 5,000 followers on Instagram, and it's all just accelerated at a pace I feel like I can barely keep up with.
That's incredible. And I think I'd love to talk more about how you are doing with some of this. It's incredible that so many people have come out in support, but I'm sure it's also so much to balance because that's adding all of this on top of your normal life as you're going about all of these things that you already do. But I first wanted to say, I actually looked at your Instagram I think probably last week, like early last week, because I was looking for guests to have on this podcast. And I was like, oh, Kaz would be amazing. Absolutely. I added you to my little like tally. And then it's so funny because when I went back and I had been keeping eyes on the sitting, and when I went back and looked at your account, I think when I looked at your account, you had 3,000 followers. And of course, now you're up to beyond 5,000. And it's just been incredible to see that. So I feel like I was almost ahead of the curve with getting you, but now I get to have you on right after all of this. But tell me about how the last couple of days have been with balancing things. Of course, you said people in your life have mentioned that they've seen you on social media. Has that been positive? Has that been something? Did a lot of people know that you were doing a lot of this work before this, or has this been something that they kind of are picking up on now? Tell me a little bit about that, how it's working with your actual in-person real life.
Yeah, so I mean, I already have a bit of difficulty with the work-life balance. It's always a bit of a struggle because I like to have a fun little social life, but equally, I do all of this advocacy, like activism work, alongside applying to Cambridge and trying to do my A-levels. So it's all a really difficult balancing act, and it has been all the more difficult for the past few days. I am lucky it's something that mostly happened over the weekend. It's, I think my screen time, though, has been something ridiculous, like 10 hours a day of just, like split between, like X, Instagram and TikTok, just trying to like make content and sift through all these comments and figure out what's going on. And it's just been incredible. I mean, this was picked up on by my sixth form, actually. I think on Friday even. So they were, this was sort of before the peak of it exploded on Saturday. And they'd already realised the amount of sort of hate and vitriol I was getting, and they already put some safeguarding things in place. So actually, I'm in the middle of a set of exams, which have very kindly been rescheduled for me because they understood I needed a bit of time and space to like obviously process what's going on and just balance out my life as well. It has been quite a lot of people in my life were aware that I do some of this sort of stuff, but I think they didn't realize like the extent to which and like the reach it could get, which to be honest, nor did I. I mean, when I knew I was going to the common sitting, I thought, hey, it might be a cool thing for my friends and family to watch. I by no means thought that some of the Twitter grifters were going to pick that up, look at my appearance and run with it, because I was like, this is just my face. This is what I look like. I think I didn't really clock it in my brain that it would be so controversial to have somebody like me speak in the comments. And as a result of that, I think some of the hate that's come out of that as well is disgusting. And they're not words I will echo repeat, but the fact that so much of that is allowed as well on this platform, it really festers and creates such an echo chamber, which is why I think it worked quite well when I made this account to call them out and sort of, stick with us in there and go, hi, I'm here, that's me, stop making fun of me, I'm up there speaking, what are you doing with your life? So it's turned around, but it was, and I know it's not just the case for me, a lot of people were really struggling with that, because even if the insults aren't personal, it's a lot to deal with. And even just to comprehend the fact that, the state of the country we're in is that, and not even the country, because I mean, this has gone internationally. I've had people contact me from, like Canada, America, Portugal, all these different places. And the intolerance that we're seeing and the polarization on the internet and in the country, I think this just exemplifies that. And it was something that was really difficult for me to process. A lot of these people who are making these hateful comments, when they were my age, we had all the punks and the goths running around, and it seems like they're still not used to the idea that somebody can, maybe want to express themselves. Youth subculture, it's in the name. And youth subculture is obviously inherently political as well, and that has been the case for a long time. They can't seem to comprehend the fact that I'd want to express myself and do something, amazing or political like this on this professional platform. It seems to be something which has taken more than half a decade to half a century even to start clicking. And I'm glad I've sort of got that ball rolling now, but I just can't believe it's difficult to process that is the state that we're in. But I've made something good out of it, I think.
I think so too. I wanted to also ask, because if you watch your actual speech and if you listen to what you're saying, which is so interesting because so many of us probably went on to your profile or watched that video and were just paying attention to what you were saying, because your appearance wouldn't have been something that we would have thought about. It would have been, oh, this is great. They're saying incredible things. Wouldn't have even batted an eye at what you were wearing. But of course, so many people probably took your appearance and ran with that. But have you gotten many comments about what you actually said and the content of your speech? What has that been like?
I've had so many since I posted it up on Twitter and Instagram. That's, I think, I clipped it as well. I did sort of one vertical clip of like what I thought was one of the best bits, and I did a full version as well. Both of those have seen quite a lot of reach, and quite a lot of it is people pointing out something which I agree with, which is that, a lot of the people who would disagree with this sort of thing, or maybe see my appearance and judge me, they have nothing to say about the words that I'm saying and the substance of my speech, which is why a lot of people go directly to appearance. I've had a lot of people also really resonate with what I'm saying. I've also had bits of it taken out of context as well, which I think it shows anything you put on the internet, people are going to take this one little bit and run with it. Because a lot of my speech was about how, as much as our individual responsibility to the climate is important, I think what we're neglecting so much, not only in legislation, but in sort of the collective attitudes towards climate change, is that ultimately a lot of who is responsible are these massive, massive companies, and we're just not holding them to account and we're not penalising them like we should. And that is also because my speech was constructed around the report that was written as part of our UK Youth Parliament conference, which was held earlier this year, in which we all get together to talk about the issues affecting us as young people on that specific topic. So I was in the sustainability subgroup. And then we take that, some of us write the report, and then that is how I structured my speech, because that is part of the process. We're debating what we've been working on for the whole year, which is something people don't really consider as well. And so I think it's been really interesting to see, a lot of people resonate with it. A lot of people, maybe pick bits of it and take them the wrong way. And a lot of people also still completely disagreeing with it. And I think we know the types of people who are doing that. And it's mostly the kind of intolerant people who couldn't even be bothered to watch the speech in the first place before I put it up there. So I've had all the different responses.
Wow. Yeah. I'm sure just combing through all of these comment sections is probably, it's probably a job on your own. And of course, like you said, balancing so many other things. That is so interesting. So what is next for you with a lot of this? I'm sure that people have asked this question, and I feel like I'm going to be the very cliche podcast host asking this, but are you thinking about working in politics someday? What is kind of the goal for some of this work that you're doing? Of course, you can do activism and not want to be a politician. I think that's, of course, always an option, but I'm sure that you've gotten this question a lot, and it's something that I've been thinking as I'm sitting here watching you and seeing how passionate you are about this. What is that long-term goal for you? Is it politics? Is it activism? Is it something entirely different? I know that's a tricky question, but I would love to know.
Well, you would be surprised. Not a lot of people have asked me this question to this extent and this depth. I've had comments sort of going, please go into politics. We want you to go into politics, be my prime minister. And I'm like, great, thanks, guys. One thing about me is that I don't plan my goals super ahead. I've not got one big life goal. I just know these are the issues that are affecting me and these are the issues that I care about, and I want to campaign and spread awareness about them and do whatever I can. Ultimately, if that means that I do go into a career in sort of party politics, because, I believe in an establishment and a system which is worth participating in, because I think we can instigate serious change there. And some of, my role models in politics right now, like I've seen, Zach Polanski, he's doing incredible things, spreading awareness and, garnering a real massive influx of support for a cause and instigating that change in the establishment. And that is giving me hope and inspiring me recently that that is something that's possible and that's something I can do. I wouldn't say, that's something I'm completely set on. I think there's a lot of careers in, in policy or even in the background in politics or even, as part of think tanks or charities. But all of it is based around the premise that I want to do as much as I can to tackle the issues which I know are affecting me and other people I care about.
I think that makes so much sense. And off of the back of that question, what are you hoping that people get from the video clips that you've been posting and some of these posts that you've been sharing? What do you hope they might take away from your experience and what you've been sharing? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so there is a line in my speech in which I say, our collective action, something along the lines of our collective action can and will instigate the change we need and hold the executioners of our planet to account. And I think that really sums up what I want people to get out of this. I really hope it is inspiring people. A few people have said it's inspired them, and that, really warms my heart because that's exactly what I wanted to do. If hearing a speech like that is what makes you get up and, join a climate initiative, do something in your community, advocate for us to sanction big oil, that is really what I want, just to garner up that support for the climate. And I think it's not just limited to the climate. There's a lot of other issues I care about and that come into it. I do talk about colonialism and extractionism in my speech as well, and those all come into this. And if these are issues that I can, impassion people with through the power of my voice to actually advocate for and, do activism for, that is truly amazing. And I think what a lot of people should probably get out of seeing me go through this experience is that you were at as well, Next Gen 2025, which was incredible. And I believe Jermaine Jackman said something along the lines of cause a little bit of mischief, cause a little bit of chaos, turn some heads. And I think that's what I've done, even though it does mean that you get some really, really horrible backlash. If you're prepared and resilient like me and you want to turn some heads and cause a little bit of mischief, that is what you need to do to instigate change. And I hope some other people can maybe take a bit of inspiration from that and go do something a little bit mischievous, not too much, a little bit mischievous, just to get some reactions and get some reach to instigate change.
I love that. I think that idea of pushing the boundaries and continuing to challenge people's thought processes, I think that that's really, really important, and making people a little bit uncomfortable. We need more of that now, uncomfortable in a good way that questions them to think about their own thoughts, I think is really, really important. I have a similar question. This one is more about you as a change maker in general, because of course you are involved with lots of different organizations and you've been doing this work beyond, of course, your speech going viral. I wanted to ask, there might be some young people out there who want to create change and want to get involved with some of this work that you're already doing, but might not know how to get started with that work. What advice would you want to share with those people who might be listening?
What I would always say is that, and I've said this to a few people already who've commented and said, I want to do this, get me in youth parliament. I really want to get in youth parliament. And I go, that is fantastic. But ultimately, youth parliament is just one fraction of what I do. It's just one step in my journey. And I think there's a lot of other things that I do which instigate some more material change. As much as youth parliament does give me a massive platform, a lot of the other things I do are creating more material change in my community and beyond. And change starts small. You always have to start small. I started small. I started with the Epping Forest Youth Council, which is obviously run in my district. And I worked with some lovely people there. I worked with the lovely Diane Butler, who's been running that youth council for over 15 years. And she really pushed me to, go up to that next level, do that next thing. And, if you're starting your journey and you start by doing something small, there's always going to be someone like that. And they're always going to push you that little bit further. And you just have to take every opportunity just to, sort of claw your way up so that you maybe get to a position where you get to do a speech in the House of Commons. But obviously, that is not the be all and end all. That's not the most important thing I think I've ever done. But I do think that, for people that see that and they are inspired and it's something they want to do, I would always recommend starting in your community and building your way up and taking all those opportunities that are handed to you, because you never know where they're going to take you.
I think that was wonderful. My last question, or kind of ask for you, is how can people support you? How can they follow along with the work that you're doing? Give yourself a little shout out for people to find you and support you with your work that you're doing now.
Okay. Well, obviously, you can probably find me quite easily on Twitter under obviously my full name, which is just Kaz ChuFoon. That's the same on Instagram, on TikTok. I'm going to be trying posting a lot more because I think people are quite interested to see the other things that I'm getting up to. And I think it's an amazing opportunity to now use this platform I've cultivated to inspire other people to create change. So the best thing you can do really is support obviously me on my platforms, engage in the resources that I'm going to be sharing on how to get involved yourself, and go and do that. And furthermore, go and, give some support to, even if you can't find their accounts directly, some of the other youth parliamentarians involved, because I know that all of them are doing really amazing things. And not all of them have, the courage, the capacity, any of that to be going and directly shouting back at these people who are hating on them like I am. Because obviously I'm quite a confrontational person. Not everyone is like that. Not everyone is so fortunate to have the time to be doing that. So give them some love, just go on social media and just talk about, go watch their speeches, go talk about how much you like them. A lot of them are clipped in places. So go seek them out, give everyone a bit of love, and it'll really just elevate the profile of youth voice in politics.
I really enjoyed talking with Kaz, and I think the work they're doing is so incredible. They are definitely making waves in UK politics, and they are a great example of someone causing a little mischief. If you haven't watched their speech in the House of Commons, please head over to Kaz's Instagram, which I've linked in the description of this episode, to watch the whole video and to show some love. But before you head over to watch that video, I want to leave you with one final piece of advice that Kaz shared to keep in mind. Change comes when you cause a little bit of mischief. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and you can find Kaz on Instagram, and I included that link in the description of this episode. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at Be The Change Media Network. I'm working on expanding Be The Change Media Network, which means bringing you more inspiring stories from amazing guests. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could leave the podcast a rating and a comment, because it will help these stories to reach, educate, and inspire more people. And I would also love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys.